This phrase might bother a lot of people. After all, throughout their lives, they've been taught that God gives a person what they deserve, what they suffer for, ask for, or patiently wait for. But what if that weren't entirely true? What if, deep down, God wasn't responding to the words that come out of our mouths, but to the silent images that our minds create every day? It's uncomfortable to think like that, but profoundly liberating. Many people pray with faith, but imagine with fear. They ask for abundance, but visualize failures. They ask for guidance, but believe they will get lost. And it is in this clash between desire and belief that most promises never manifest. Not because God denied them, but because the mind sent another message. It's almost like trying to turn on a light with the switch off. The intention is there, but the energy doesn't flow. There comes a point in life when a person needs to choose between continuing to believe the story they were told, or the story they create within themselves every day. And when they understand that God operates through mental laws and not momentary emotions, everything changes. Life stops seeming unfair and starts to seem logical. Not punitive, but responsive. Not slow, but precise. And it is precisely here that the question no one asks begins to arise. If God delivers what the mind creates, then what exactly has your mind been creating without you realizing it? The invisible logic of creation. Why God responds to what you think, not what you deserve. Most people live expecting God to respond to their worthiness, as if the universe were evaluating report cards of good deeds. But with time, they understand something disconcerting. God doesn't operate on the logic of human merit, but rather on inner vibration. It's like a radio that can only reproduce the station it's tuned to. A person may even desire prosperity, but if their mind operates on the channel of scarcity, that's the sound that comes back. And when they realize this, everything starts to make a little more sense. I like to explain this with a simple story. Once, he met a man who prayed for opportunities, but grumbled all day about bad luck. He didn't realize that his mind was sending orders contrary to what he was asking for aloud. God doesn't answer contradictory requests. He answers the dominant thought pattern. It's like planting oranges and expecting to harvest grapes. The soil doesn't judge, doesn't question. It only gives back what it receives. And understanding this dynamic changes everything in the way you see life. This scares some people because it's easier to believe that merit controls everything. But the truth is that God acts through mental laws, silent, impartial, and absolutely faithful to what a person carries within. That's why Napoleon always says, "Observe what you think, not just what you ask for." When a person perceives this invisible logic, they begin to look at their own results with new eyes. And it is precisely at this point that something even deeper begins to appear. Belief as the master key. How your ideas shape the divine response. A belief functions like a secret password that opens doors in reality. It doesn't matter how many times someone repeats beautiful words if, deep down in their mind, they hold the opposite idea. God doesn't respond to public discourse. He responds to inner conviction. Belief creates a kind of energetic blueprint that the universe interprets as instruction. And it's fascinating to see how ordinary people change their lives when they change only this internal password. Napoleon once advised a woman who dreamed of financial stability, but held the belief that money attracts problems. She worked hard, saved money, but everything crumbled whenever she seemed to be prospering. The problem wasn't a lack of effort, but rather her belief system sabotaging her results. When she rewrote her internal narrative, everything changed. She gained new clients, improved her communication, and even received unexpected proposals. This showed how belief is, in fact, the master key that opens or closes paths. Many underestimate the power of belief because they expect immediate effects, like pressing a button. But belief works like an internal thermostat. It regulates the maximum a person allows themselves to receive. You may even desire something great, but if your belief is set for little, God will respect that limit. And when this idea begins to seduce the mind, the inevitable question arises. If belief defines the limit, where exactly is that limit installed within us? The hidden role of the subconscious, where God reads your true intentions. The subconscious functions like a silent vault where the beliefs that truly govern life are kept. It is there, in that deep and almost inaccessible space, that God reads the true intentions of each person. It's no use trying to convince the world that you are confident if, internally, you fear everything. The subconscious doesn't negotiate, doesn't disguise, doesn't lie. It simply replicates, like a faithful mirror, what has been deposited there over the years. Napoleon Hill has seen people living in repetitive cycles without understanding why, until they discovered that they carried in their subconscious phrases inherited from childhood, such as "money is dirty" or "no one in our family prospers." It's almost like trying to run with an anchor tied to your ankle. When they work on this hidden content, sometimes with therapy, sometimes with books like The Power of the Subconscious Mind, in Joseph Murphy's book, they realize it wasn't bad luck, but programming. And it's curious to see how, by changing that programming, life responds almost immediately. Napoleon sees the subconscious as the bridge where the human mind meets divine intelligence. It is there that the seeds of thought gain enough strength to become reality. And the deeper you delve into this understanding, the more you realize that people don't attract what they desire, but what they can emotionally tolerate. This point raises something even more intriguing. If the subconscious holds the key, then what happens when someone feeds it images that go against the life they claim to want? The human contradiction, demanding wealth while mentally living in scarcity. Many people ask for prosperity while mentally living as if they were prisoners of scarcity. It's like someone asking for rain, but leaving home carrying an umbrella. The mind transmits one message, and the heart transmits another, and God responds to the one that vibrates more strongly, almost always that of fear. Hill saw people praying for abundance while repeating, "Everything is difficult. Nothing works out for me." And this disconnect creates an invisible barrier that prevents any real progress. Napoleon knew someone who dreamed of owning his own business, but he said every day that entrepreneurship is for crazy people. He even prayed for courage, but his actions revealed avoidance and hesitation. The mind doesn't manifest what contradicts behavior, so instead of opportunities, only more reasons to give up arose. When this man finally changed his inner dialogue, reading books like The Magic of Thinking Big, and by surrounding himself with visionary people, new doors began to open almost suddenly. This contradiction is more common than it seems because most people don't realize they live in a state of mental survival mode. A person asks for money, but calculates each step with fear. Asks for love, but believes it's not enough. Asks for expansion, but thinks small. The universe doesn't respond to the request, it responds to the internal state. And when someone understands this deeply, a new concern arises. If desire isn't enough, what truly triggers change in someone's life? The mechanism of active faith, when the mind and spirit begin to speak the same language. There is a profound difference between spoken faith and active faith. Spoken faith is asking. Active faith is believing before seeing. And when the mind and spirit finally begin to converse in the same language, something changes in the invisible realm. People who were previously afraid to act begin to walk as if they have already received the blessing. It's almost as if life responds to this new inner rhythm, adjusting circumstances to this state of silent certainty. There was a young woman who dreamed of passing a competitive exam, but she studied as if she doubted herself. When she understood the concept of active faith, she changed her approach. She created a realistic schedule, set aside daily time for review, invested in quality materials, and mentally repeated, "I become more capable with each page." This combination of action and conviction created a strength she had never felt before. And it's no coincidence that she passed months later. Active faith creates movement, and God responds to movement. This mechanism is so powerful because active faith isn't stubbornness, it's alignment. The person acts as if they already possess the promise, even if nothing external has changed yet. This is how athletes train. Visionary entrepreneurs persevere, and ordinary people transform their destinies. The mind begins to imagine possibilities, and the spirit sustains the energy of realization. And when both synchronize, another inevitable question arises. If this works so well, why haven't we been taught how to accelerate this manifestation? The mental law of rapid manifestation, transforming thoughts into matter. Rapid manifestation is not a random miracle. It is a direct consequence of the alignment between thought, imagination, and emotion. When these three elements vibrate in the same direction, reality begins to respond as if it were being pulled by a magnet. Hill has seen people change jobs, recover relationships, and create seemingly impossible opportunities simply by adjusting their mind's focus. And the most interesting part is that this response does not depend on excessive effort, but on inner clarity. He compares this process to adjusting the focus of a camera. Before, everything seems blurry, confusing, distant. But when the mental lens aligns, the image appears with surprising clarity. Once, he advised a man who was trapped in debt and believed that nothing would change. When he began to visualize an organized life daily, reading books on finance, noting expenses, negotiating interest, reality changed almost instantly. Not because God took pity, but because the mind finally gave him the right image to deliver. Many people become frustrated in this process because they want quick results without preparing the mental ground. But the law that transforms thought into matter responds only to what is consistent, not to what is emotionally unstable. When someone holds a vision for days, weeks, months, something inevitable happens. The external begins to bend to the internal, and it is precisely at this point that an even deeper question arises. If the mind has this power, what prevents someone from reprogramming it to create a completely new reality? Spiritual reprogramming. How to change what you create without fighting against yourself. Reprogramming the mind isn't about fighting negative thoughts, but about replacing them with stronger, more coherent ideas. The battle isn't against the mind. It's against the old habits that shape current life. Napoleon has seen people try to force change through willpower, but this only leads to exhaustion. True reprogramming happens when a person begins to nurture images and words that create new internal pathways. It's like changing the script, not just trying to act better in the same story. He recalls a woman who kept repeating that she wasn't good enough to succeed. Instead of fighting against this statement, he taught her to practice small daily rituals. 5 minutes of inspirational reading. In the morning, writing down 3 victories of the day at night, and choosing a new behavior each week. This simple change created an accumulation of internal evidence that reprogrammed her self-image. Books like Atomic Habits. They helped her understand that small changes generate giant transformations. And when she realized that, her energy changed. He considers spiritual reprogramming a way to align the mind with what God has long desired to deliver. When a person stops resisting internally, everything flows more easily. Their life ceases to be an internal struggle and becomes a conscious construction. And it is precisely at this point that he observes a curious phenomenon. Some people reprogram their minds, change patterns, clear beliefs. But even so, they do not prosper. And this curiosity opens the door to the next essential understanding. Practical evidence. Why some people thrive and others repeat cycles. Prosperity is not random. It leaves traces. Whenever Napoleon Hill observes people who move forward while others seem to spin in circles, he notices clear patterns. Those who prosper have a rare combination: aligned thinking, coherent action, and an emotional disposition to receive. Those who repeat cycles, on the other hand, live trapped in old stories that repeat themselves like an echo. They ask for change, but carry the same identity as before, and life responds exactly to that. Hill recalls two brothers who grew up in the same house, faced the same difficulties, and received the same education. One prospered early, the other keeps trying but without making any progress. The difference? The first believed he could learn anything and sought references that fueled this vision, such as courses, mentors, and books like Mindset. The second one believed that life was an unfair battle. Even with similar opportunities, their minds created completely different realities. And this reinforced for him the idea that prosperity is more mental than material. People who truly thrive don't wait for the perfect moment. They create that moment with small, consistent steps. They invest in themselves, surround themselves with environments that expand them, and keep their minds vigilant against limiting narratives. Meanwhile, those who repeat cycles tend to react more than act. And when they observe this stark contrast, the next inevitable point arises. The precise moment when life changes direction, when God finally delivers what the mind believed. The tipping point. The moment when God delivers what you finally believed in. There is an almost sacred moment in anyone's journey. The instant when the mind finally believes in what was previously only desire. It's a silent, yet decisive, turning point. The person wakes up on an ordinary day, but something inside them is no longer the same. They begin to act as someone who has already received the answer. And it is precisely in this alignment, between intention and conviction, that God manifests what was withheld due to a lack of inner permission. There was a young man who had been searching for a better life for years, but only found closed doors. One day, after months of inner work, that young man said, "Now I know it's possible." Nothing extraordinary happened at that moment, but his attitude changed. He sent out resumes with confidence, spoke differently in interviews, and even his eyes had a different sparkle. In a few weeks, opportunities began to arise. The turning point didn't come from the outside. It came from the moment he truly believed. God only confirmed what his mind finally held. This turning point is so powerful because it inaugurates a new cycle, as if the universe were rearranging paths around the person's new identity. Nothing forces, nothing pushes, nothing begs. Everything flows. And it is in this exact place, where belief, intention, and action meet, that something profoundly transformative happens. But before revealing how this dynamic operates in everyday life and how anyone can activate it, it is necessary to draw the viewer into the story even more intensely. After hearing all this, something inside you has already begun to stir. Perhaps it's that strange feeling, a mixture of hope and responsibility, that arises when someone realizes they always had more power than they imagined. Because in the end, God always answered. But he answered what your mind created, not what you said you wanted. And now that you understand this logic, the inevitable question is, what will you create from today onward? Look at your life honestly. What thoughts have been dominating your days? What stories do you unconsciously repeat? What images do you nurture when no one is watching? The truth is simple and direct. You don't change your life by changing your desires. You change your life by changing your beliefs. So what belief do you need to abandon? And what new identity are you willing to assume to receive what God has already prepared? None of this works without practice. So start small. Write down what you want to experience. Visualize that reality for a few minutes a day. Speak like someone who has already received it, and act like someone who is walking toward the inevitable. This is not fantasy. It's alignment. And the moment your mind accepts the new story, God will confirm every line of it. Now, before you go, answer in the comments, what new reality have you decided to create starting today? It is clear. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue walking with me on this journey of mental and spiritual transformation. There's still so much you need to hear. And this is just the beginning.